or like Oprah Winfrey did when she said when she was first on television, she had no idea how to interview somebody. So she sat like Barbara Walters did, and she asked questions like Barbara Walters. And she also modeled Phil Donahue really, really closely at the time. And it's like Isaac Newton said, he said, the reason I see so far is because I stand on the tall shoulders of the giants that preceded me. So the fact that Oprah Winfrey modeled Phil Donahue or Barbara Walters didn't make her a cardboard copy cutout of those two. It allowed her to build on their success and to stand on the tall shoulders of the giants and take things even further into the future. Or when Eddie Murphy was practicing Richard Pryor's routines when Eddie Murphy was a kid, he understood the same thing that Justin Timberlake or Britney Spears understood when they were looking at their idols and trying to emulate their moves when they were part of the Mickey Mouse Club, is that, you know, the sooner that we start to find true role models of excellence and break down how do they do what they're doing, the faster we can create a roadmap to success for ourselves. And that can accelerate our success, not just 10-fold or 20-fold or 30-fold or 100-fold, but it can do it 1,000-fold. And it can make new things possible for us that may not have been ever possible for us before. So it can open new doorways of possibility where before there were only walls. And that's part of the magic of breaking down how does somebody else produce a result. Now, there's two types of modeling that we can do. And if you're interested in this, you can learn more about it in our programs, the advanced stuff or other things that we're doing here with the group. But there's two types of modeling that we can do generally when we're looking to accelerate our success. We can do what's called outside modeling. And outside modeling is where you watch what somebody does and you emulate it. Okay, so like when Elvis Presley was first shaking his legs in that unusual way that shattered all the airways and caused so much controversy. When that was first happening, he didn't come up with that on his own. He was watching older singers that had done that before, blues singers, and there were at the time there were black singers and colored singers that were doing it. That Elvis Presley was like, wow, I got to tap into a little bit of that, and he started wiggling his legs like he had seen them do. So that wasn't something that he came up with on his own. And oftentimes we think that the things that bring us the most success, because you got to admit that Elvis's wiggle had a lot to do with his success. We think that that's something that's just innate within the individual, but the reality is that who you are today is based on the sum total of everybody that you've chosen to model up until now, consciously and unconsciously, what you took on from your parents, what you took on from the major teachers as you were growing, or your first real business mentor. All of those people will have made a profound impact in who you are and the types of strategies that you use, the types of things that you do. But if we want to kick it up a notch and we want to take ourselves up to the next level, then we need to consciously begin to look for new models. Because what happens is for most people, the learning slows down considerably. And believe it or not, from a biological perspective, the learning slows down considerably around the age of 10. Right? Before the age of 7 to 9, where the neurology is firing off like crazy, and you're like a little sponge soaking in beliefs, values, attitudes, ways of looking at the world, ways of dealing with money, ways of dealing with relationships. A lot of that's been soaked in and literally hardwired in before the age of 10. But that doesn't mean we have to stop learning. It's just that the learning does slow down. Biologically speaking, the neurology stops firing off as quickly because we develop coping mechanisms for dealing with life. So we start to develop predisposed biases and predisposed ways for looking at the world to show up, how we expect people to show up, or how we show up in relationships and so on. And so these predisposed biases prevent us from really learning as fast as we could learn. So what I'd like to suggest as adults, that we become massive learning machines. And a massive learning machine is a massive earning machine. I'll say that again, you may want to write it down. A massive learning machine is a massive earning machine. And in my experience, one of the best ways to learn is through modeling. So we do outside modeling while we do emulation. But then we can do inside modeling, where we get inside someone's head and we think of how they process and how they do things. So we get some how they process and how they do things. Like, what do they value? What do they believe? What's a Richard Branson believe? What's a Warren Buffett believe? Buffett believes that it's easier to make money than it is to spend it. What an interesting belief. What would happen if you took that on? That might change your world. Richard Branson believes that businesses are like buses. There's always another one coming along. Buffett believes that there's no expense too trifling to escape scrutiny. So the various beliefs that people have that are playing at the top levels can help to empower you when you embrace those. We happen to use the various tools that I've been researching over the past 20 years to install them with hypnosis and neurolinguistics and the various psychological disciplines that I've been studying over the years. So we install those in you through the educational path that you take with us. But, sometimes just awareness is the first step to change. Awareness that maybe the belief systems that we have or the values that we have or the strategies that are innate within us are not sufficient to get us to where we really want to go. In which case we can take this secret shortcut to your first million and say, okay, who's doing it out there? It's been said that the most important question you can ever ask yourself is who's the competition? Or at least one of the most important questions. Because the moment that you define the competition, you define the type of game that you're playing. So your home play, should you choose to accept it, is to go out and find 3 to 5 people or companies, or I like to look at individuals because I like to look for mindset that you can model that are doing what you want to be doing and playing at the level that you want to be playing at. If you're inside an organization and you work in a company where there's pace setters and people that are leaders that are out there really doing it, then really get inside their head, break it down, find out what do they value, what do they believe, what are the strategies that they use. When I went to go work for Dale Carnegie Training back in 1997, when I was starting on my career path, I remember going and I wanted to find the salespeople that were doing the most. So people that were doing $250,000 plus in sales. And the question that we ask from a modeling perspective at a very basic level, there's more in-depth modeling that we can get to. And we teach complete modeling through our programs in much greater depth. So you can learn how to do it and how to do it for real. But at a basic level, very basic level, just get ferociously curious. And the major question that we can ask is, how do you do that? How do you do that? I went to the salesperson at Dale Carnegie who was selling over $250,000. And I said, well, how do you do over $250,000 in sales? What's important to you in working with people? And what do you believe about working with people? And I began to break down the psychology and the mindset. Now, this is a very short introduction to that. This goes much deeper, and I could teach it for weeks on end, and I do in our advanced courses. But this gives you the beginnings of the secret shortcut, and it really does. It puts it in your awareness what you can do. And that is, if you're growing a business venture right now, start by asking who's the competition or who are sources of inspiration. Pick 3 to 5 and go to town, getting ferociously curious and asking, how do you do that? How do they do that? How did they handle their finances? How did they raise the money? How did they apply it to grow? All of these types of questions. What was most important to them? What drove them? It's a pleasure to be a resource on your journey toward even faster modeling and being able to literally clone success in the flash of an eye. And we'll teach you that along the way. But this is the best place to start with your ferocious curiosity to question, how do you do that? And also the second attitude is an attitude of wanton experimentation. Getting out there and getting the knowledge, the insights, and the wisdom that you glean from your modeling and applying it immediately in your life. Jack Welch of GE fame says that the winning organization is the rapidly learning and assimilating organization. That means the faster your company learns and assimilates that information, can put it into direct application, the more greater your chances are of winning. But that goes not just for companies, that goes for individuals. The rapidly learning and assimilating organization or individual is the person who will succeed. It's been said that the learning, what do they say? The learning shall inherit the earth, while the learned, yeah, that's it. The learning shall inherit the earth, while the learned will be very well equipped for a world that no longer exists. So we live in a day and a time where we've got to constantly be learning. And in my experience, modeling puts the best practices of the best in your hands so that you can apply them in your secret shortcut to your first million. So in terms of modeling, like what I would be doing is, obviously the people, if you can talk, they say if you want to learn how to follow a recipe or to bake a cake, if you really wanted to learn it exactly, the best way to do it if you're modeling a master chef is to get in the kitchen with the chef. So whenever you can, if you can get in the field with somebody who's doing the kind of results that you want to do, then that's ideal because you can watch them in action. So I would say from a network marketing perspective, wherever you can double up with people that are going to train you, worship those opportunities, jump on those opportunities, salivate over those opportunities, and volunteer for those opportunities. So because you get to see things, you get to peek under the curtain in ways that most people don't get to do it. and be ferociously curious. So it's just the emotional state. How do you do that? Asking those questions. I have a girl that I'm training right up now in my marketing department, and you know she's going to be hugely successful because she's ferociously curious and she asks the right questions. You know, you'd be amazed at what you can unpack from somebody who's willing to share with you how they do things. But in my case, or in my experience, more often than not, people just aren't curious enough. They don't ask the right questions. They don't really try to break things down to discover. You know, I remember when I was talking to, the guy's name was Lou McCullough, the salesperson from Dale Carnegie Training. And I remember going to him and I said, Lou, what's important to you? And by the way, this is a question that we can ask to elicit value. So you can do this when you find the person that you're going to model inside the networking organization. You can say, what's important to you in working with, what's important to you in working with your clients? Or what's important to you what's important to you in sales even? And what's fascinating is the answer that I got from Lou kind of surprised me because it wasn't what I expected. Lou said, you know what's most important to me in working with a client is when I help somebody to achieve something that was at one point out of reach or even impossible. He said, and then they do it. That's what thrills me most. Okay, now at the time, there were a lot of green salespeople that were running around just trying to make a buck, just trying to make a sale. And those people weren't the people that were making it. Lou was making $250,000 in sales because he cared about the end results of his clients. And when he saw that, that's what thrilled him. And so when you get the space that somebody comes from, and I'll tell you, just that one little teeny thing made all the impact in the world for me, because sometimes common sense is not all that common. And it seems like a common sense strategy. But when you're just starting in something, oftentimes you're reinventing the wheel. You get preconceived notions and ideas of the way it needs to be in order for it to work. And oftentimes it's the green people in sales that give the bad reputation for everybody else, because they're just trying to make a buck, where the person who's really making the $250,000 plus is out there really trying to serve. When you think of the word sell, it comes from the root word sellier, which means to serve. So we're really serving people. And that that's one little secret shortcut to your first million that I got from Lou McCullough so many years ago. But those are the types of shortcuts that you want to look for. Find those people that you're doing it, take them to lunch, ask them if you can model them, get on an upline that's going somewhere fast. I always say, if you don't know where you're going, get on a bullet train that's going somewhere fast. So jump on, but be the one that's full of questions. Be the one. If I'm doing that, but I'm not aligned on the right direction on my path. So in other words, if I'm not headed my true north, then it doesn't matter. I can use, then dealing with procrastination is just like a Band-Aid. It's not dealing with the underlying issue. And when I say path, being on our true north, what I don't mean that it needs to take any particular expression or anything like that. It just means being aligned with our God-given, with our divine inner destiny where we're meant to go. I find that if you're dealing with motivation issues and somebody isn't aligned in the direction they're going, that it's like putting a Band-Aid on a problem. You're not really dealing with the underlying issue. So ultimate alignment and heading your true north in life, I think, is mission critical. And that big picture has to be in place. And then you look at smaller motivation issues, because if you know you're on the right path, then could there still be motivation issues? 100%, still could be. So in Rich Heart Wealthy Mind, it's about identifying, and I don't believe that you find your purpose. I believe you choose your purpose. So Rich Heart Wealthy Mind is about choosing your purpose, clarifying your vision, your mission, all of that. And then another thing that I do is I teach tools for doing self-programming, reprogram your unconscious mind to drive you forward toward your ultimate vision. I teach other cool things inside this program. The program used to be $4,000, like in the $4,000 range, and we'd have 300-400 people in the program at a time. I'm sure I've had 600 people in the room for this particular training. But once again, I'm doing this at my place. It's a small VIP environment, no more than 20. I haven't taught it in 8 years, and I'm going to be adding new stuff into it as well that I've gleaned over the years. So we're going to have a blast. Very cool VIP group, and we'd love to have you come and join us for this weekend. It's the weekend of the 24th, August 24th, 25th, and 26th. There are currently, as we look at it, there's 7 spots left. So we have 13 people in that class. There's 7 spots left. They're $997 a piece, which is a fraction of the normal price. But the true value and the true gift of it is to be on path and to be on purpose and to be driven toward what it is that you really want to create in your life. I think that life purpose issues are more critical to people than their financial issues. And when I say that, our financial issues, like whenever I would teach seminars over the years, I go into the room, I'd say, how many people here, if you had only one breakthrough, would want it to be relationships? And you get some people that would raise their hand. I'd say, how many people want it to be in your health? Some people would raise their hand. I'd say, how about career and finances? 90% of the people in the room would raise their hand saying, that's the breakthrough I want, right? So, so in terms of financial issues, that can oftentimes be really big in our consciousness, and they can occupy a lot of our mind. But for me, life purpose issues are so much more important, because number one, it's been said that if you're not passionate about what you do, then you'll never stick with it truly long enough to become truly financially successful. So I look at passion as being the gateway to entry. That's the ticket to entry. Then how do you monetize something and how do you build it up? That's a different story that we can get to afterwards, but you want to get there as a function of having knowing that you're on the right path. Then monetization can come. So in Rich Heart Wealthy Mind, I help people to identify that vision, mission, and purpose, teach them self-programming with hypnosis. I also teach, I think there's so much magic in dreams. Our dreams move our souls, they stir our hearts, our minds. I believe that God's will and your heart's desire are one and the same. So I believe that there's something that we're meant to be doing here on the planet. And I teach systems throughout Rich Heart Wealthy Mind to program yourself, for example, before you go to sleep, and then to analyze your dreams the next morning so that you can get the messages from your unconscious mind to close the communication loop. And it's literally becoming your own guru. It's really quite a powerful process for driving you forward on the path towards your greatest dreams. And then we also teach, I teach what are called performance results descriptions, which is essentially a